Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Nonprofits. The Ten Commandments are making their way into public schools in Texas, but not if one representative has anything to say about it. AJ has more details.
Texas just continues to inch closer and closer to Christian nationalist status, and which was one of the main goals of Project 2025. On May 28th, the Texas Senate voted to pass the Ten Commandments bill, which requires all public schools in Texas to display the Ten Commandments. Yes, you heard that right. Tax funded public schools. So, regardless of the taxpayers' religion, they will be forced to get behind this nonsense. But our hope is not lost. Okay, there is one very outspoken Texas representative by the name of James Talarico, who is a Democrat, who has been grilling other representatives that support the bill during the hearings and on other public forums. This story is from The Friendly Atheist by Hemant Mehta on May 28, 2025.
Outstanding. Thank you. So, AJ, let's actually come right back to you and just kind of give our audience a little bit of a clearer picture of what we're talking about here. What does the bill actually say? And do you think it's actually going to help, or is it expected to actually help in the way that Congresswoman Noble, the main sponsor of the bill, is claiming that it will? What do you think?
Help? I don't know about that. But the bill is actually ridiculously detailed. The bill says that the Ten Commandments posters will have to be the King James Version, obviously the only acceptable Bible version according to Christian nationalists. So another thing that it details is that it will have to be exactly 16 by 20 inches, very specific, and it even says that it must be made of a durable material so that it is not easily destroyed. But get this, the posters could be either privately donated or purchased with district funds. So again, taxpayers, regardless of their religion, will be liable for funding these biblical rules posters for classrooms, whatever their schools are zoned. And meanwhile, you have other bills like being pushed, to get rid of free lunches for school children. So teachers have to purchase all of their supplies with their own personal money. But sure, go ahead and give tax money to, districts to pay for these Ten Commandment posters anytime, right? It seems like their priorities are as screwed up as they can be. If only God had added a commandment about taking care of kids, maybe then Christians would give a shit about their children the same way that they do before they're born, when they're just a clump of cells.
Yeah, that's a good sentiment, but I'm kind of with Kelley there. I saw him like shaking his head. Yeah. I think some of the videos in this article demonstrated that a lot of a lot of people don't actually know the commandments very well. Do you want to expand on that, Kelley?
I was about to say, yeah, and the ones that do, they still break them anyway. So, right. AJ, when you're doing the introduction, you said that Texas was moving closer to Christian nationalism. And I thought to myself, what do you mean closer? Didn't they make it there already? But sorry.
Right. He's already pulled over. He can't pull over any farther.
Yeah, right. That's it.
So, Kelley, while we have your attention, we're coming up on we're about a month away from the 100th anniversary of the Scopes monkey trial, or the Scopes trial, I think, more officially. Do you see any resemblance between like this bill and the Butler Act, for example, that was kind of central in that case?
I do. Now, the Butler Act was passed along with a whole slew of that same, different versions of it, but the same law was passed throughout many states, especially out through the South, all around the same time. And we're starting to see that now with this, that Louisiana did it, Arkansas did it. I'm pretty sure Oklahoma is trying to do it as well. So we're seeing this kind of wave of this Christian idealism being put into the law. And of course, that's unconstitutional, just like the Butler Act was. Of course, I think we all know Scopes lost his trial, but he ultimately won the war to get religion out of biology. So, but it wasn't until all those laws were challenged, just like this one's being challenged in Louisiana presently, that and they cost a lot of states very expensive trials. There was like 3 losses in a row, and Scopes won his. So, but right after that, there were 3 losses. The evolution laws were repealed right after that. State senates and state governments were repealing them before a lawsuit happened, so they could save money. They were bleeding money through the courts because of it. And I think that we're going to see a similar situation play out here. I think we might see Missouri could pass one, Alabama, Mississippi. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think that after they get a couple of losses in the courts, after they've spent a few $1 million trying to defend something that's constitutionally indefensible, I think we'll see everybody start dropping it, just like they dropped the evolution laws.
I would definitely hope that would be the case, but it seems to me in this instance, for this particular bill, it's going to have to come from the top down. And I don't know how confident I feel about that happening. But the reason I say that is because before this bill passed in the House, there was an amendment added to it that would require the state attorney general to act in court as the defense for any district that gets sued as a result of this bill. And if that district does not, if that district is penalized, the right word is escaping me right now, but if they don't win that case, if the district that he's representing doesn't win that case, the taxpayers, the state is like required to pay the damages, the losses, the penalty, any financial or economic, you could say,
hey, you know what? I know it. I'm pretty sure I know a taxpayer in Texas. I wonder, AJ, how do you feel about having to pay for that?
And not only, and I do want your opinion on that. And not only that, but what was it like for you to, in a place like Texas that's rife with Christian influence, to see a religious, nonetheless, representative speaking out so strongly against this bill? What was that experience like?
Well, obviously, as an atheist, it's been really interesting, to say the least, to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Firstly, because Representative Talarico, he's a former school teacher. And so he has experience being in a classroom, right? And so I actually really enjoyed his exchange with the bill's sponsor, the Republican Representative Candinovo.
Yeah, every exchange. Everyone that he has. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Roasted her. He roasted her literally about this bill. There's no other way to put it other than he roasted her to a crisp. So I've been seeing tons of short clips of on the different questions and answers, and I was really shocked to learn that he's a Christian. At first, I thought he was maybe one of the nuns, the no religion people.
Spiritual, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with Christ, kind of thing.
Yeah, I swear the way that he opposed the bill. It sounded like one of those arguments that you will hear on the Atheist Experience, right? Like somebody experienced, freaking John Gleason or something like that. But this told me one thing. He is a secular Christian, not a Christian nationalist. And that is the huge difference between all of these legislators. One of them forces the religion down everyone's throats, and the other respects the separation of church and state, as the Constitution indicates, right? So he is an amazing example of the way that Christian legislators should behave while representing their constituents, because they come from different faiths, like us, no faiths. It's funny though, I think I mentioned this before we started the show, that here in Houston specifically, we have one local representative, and he is Jewish. So what he did was he presented an amendment for this bill saying that they should have the Jewish Ten Commandments displayed as well. And what did Republicans do? They were like, no way. They voted completely against it. And he was like, listen, I will never actually do that, but I had to do this to prove the hypocrisy of these people, like the hypocrisy that they would not allow even the Jewish Ten Commandments. No, only the like we said, the King James version is the only acceptable one. And yeah, that I thought that was like pretty epic.
Yeah. And I like too how the sorry, I had a lot of thoughts just come into my head all at once at the end there. I'm trying to choose which one. There was a group or an individual that started making like posters that technically fit the specifications that the law requires, which you mentioned earlier. And I wanted to say that kind of reminds me a lot more of like signs that have the force of law. Like, for example, in states where a no weapons allowed sign has the force of law, it's required to meet certain size specifications. The print has to be of a certain size. It can't be smaller than this, small. It has to be in plain view. And the specifications for this bill remind me a lot of like the specifications for no firearms signs, which doesn't give you the impression that it's about making a history lesson available. It gives you the impression that it's about making sure that it is seen. And so there was one artist, or I'd call him a protester, I should say, that made some versions of these signs that fit all the specifications that the law requires, but like one of them is in Arabic. One of them, they increased the visibility of the words kill, adultery, steal, and ass out of the King James versions of the commandments. So I thought that was really funny. As far as James Talarico, though, like this isn't really anything new. Like he was doing this 2 years ago when the bill was first sponsored. I saw even before we knew that before I knew that this is what this article was about, I saw another video of him opposing this last week.
No, I'm going to break in right now, Eli, and reprimand you because we covered that here on the Nonprofits. I myself covered that video 2 years ago. So you should have been watching, damn it.
2 years ago. Yeah, that's on me. Right. That's on me. I'll take that one. But no, even like you mentioned, AJ, you thought like you had like kind of some presumption about like his religious belief. When I first heard him speaking, I thought that I thought he was a Republican. Or I guess I could say a Republican that was religious, but just happened to be sort of like getting it right on this. At the beginning of the video, it's like, it was kind of unclear, like, probably a Democrat. Then I find out that he's religious, and then I find out that he's a religious Democrat that's fighting for the separation of church and state. So I was really impressed with him as well. Kelley, did you have any thoughts about Representative Talarico that you wanted to add?
I love the way he was bringing up the hypocrisy of his fellow politicians in Texas with the obvious references to Ken Paxton, right? I don't know. Speaking of the earlier confrontation with Noble, right? Representative Noble. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I think the earlier one from 2 years ago was more. I was like more burning than this last one was. So if you haven't seen this, if you've seen this one, thought it was good, go find the other one, watch it. It's great.
Watch the prequel.
He did a great job of exposing her hypocrisy. And I'm really surprised that like after 2 years, she had 2 years knowing this was going to happen to her again, that she didn't come up with any better responses. It was it was almost worse. She was just like, almost like her brain got switched off, like happens to me every once in a while. And I think she spent too much time reading the 10 Commandments instead of paying attention to in debate class or in high school. I don't know. But one of the things I really enjoyed was Jamie Raskin coming out and commenting that if the Texas Congress votes on each commandment and no member could vote for any one they had broken, none of them would be passed. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. And the thing, and you said like if she would spend less time reading the commandments, I'm not sure that that's the case. That she spent too much time reading, because there was a little bit of banter in like some of the videos in the article, and you hear one of like her cronies, I guess I'm going to say, in the background, saying Representative Talarico says something about legislators not following the commandments, and one of them says, "Well, maybe if they had them posted." Like, is that
what you would think? What you would think by now, this grown man who is a representative would know the 10 Commandments.
Right, especially if they've been like championing this bill or like sponsoring or endorsing this bill about them for 2 years, because they're so important and foundational to our history. But that along that note, AJ, you said earlier how like it kind of reminded you of some of like our live show debates that we hear every week. And I thought it kind of reminded me of like some like Representative Noble's arguments were less effective than some of the less effective arguments we heard in AXP. Didn't you have an example of one that you said pointed out the hypocrisy pretty well?
I do. Like there was one specific exchange that truly and clearly showed the irony of it all. And I have it pulled up straight from the article, so I'm going to read it from there. And it's between Talarico and Noble. So Talarico goes first, and he's like, "What is the fourth commandment?" And Noble replies, "Are you referring to the way it's written in the bill?" He said, "Yeah." She makes a really long pause and starts looking at her paperwork. And she's like, "Keep the Sabbath. It's about us being here on Saturday." And then she laughs. "Isn't it ironic?" And Talarico was like, "Well, so what does it mean to keep the Sabbath holy?" And she goes, "Well, I think it's, you want to get into theology here? I'd love to, if you would like to. I think it's really important that we take a day of rest. I think God, who founded the world, didn't need rest. And yet he took a day of rest after he did creation. And I think he was a good example to us to take a day of rest. That is enshrined in our rules and our constitution, where it says, excepting Sunday, in our very early documents as a nation." This is where people think that the Bible is in the Constitution. So Talarico says, "And so part of keeping the Sabbath holy is not working on the Sabbath, right?" She's like, "That is, a day of rest." So he goes, "And what is the 10 Commandments? You know, they come from Judaism, right? What day is the Jewish Sabbath?" And she goes, "Saturday." "And what day is it today?" And she goes, "It's Saturday." Yeah. So Talarico is like, "And the Christian Sabbath is what day?" And she goes, "Sunday, in honor of the day of Jesus, when Jesus rose from the dead."
In case he forgot.
Yeah, right. And he's like, "Well, and we're scheduled to give this bill the final vote on what day of the week?" It was gonna be on a Sunday. She's like, "It's ironic, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is ironic." Like,
idea.
You know what? She was correct that the Constitution does mention counting days for passing bills, but Sunday, because it says 6 days or something like that. But Sunday should not be counted. It's kind of like the way that we say 10 business days, right? We count Monday through Friday on a business day. So, but the wording of the Constitution does not say that you're not supposed to work on that day. So it has nothing to do with the Bible. And another one that she's clearly not following is the 9th commandment, which says to not bear false witness. And so it goes to show that they are currently not following either the Constitution or the Bible rules. Like she's not respecting either her Christian or her nationalist dogma. So like, what is the point of having these 10 commandments if every person that is pushing for the bill is already not following some of them?
You know what's worse than the obvious lack of intellect in this woman? She got elected. people fucking actually voted for her, having heard her speak, and that just blows me away. Before we end this segment, though, Eli, you were talking about the signs in Arabic. In 2022, Texas passed a law saying that every school had to have a poster saying "In God We Trust," and somebody donated some Arabic posters and some really cute rainbow posters, and none of them were accepted by the school districts. So it's just an interesting point.
No surprise there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The school districts said that they had already received enough posters and weren't taking any more.
They didn't send them back, though. They probably just threw them away, or
I'm not sure about the final destination.
Yeah, I'm speculating there, obviously. But no, I think to both of those points, it's pretty clear that this isn't really about like, oh, this is foundational to our nation and to our Constitution, because not only that entire exchange that you read out, AJ, but there was another one where I really appreciated James Talarico saying this. He says, I think there's a switching back and forth of saying that this is historical, but then through your comments, like as he's asking her to justify, like, why is this a good bill? He goes on to say, the religion comes through, right? And so it just really highlighted that for me. The purpose of this bill is so clearly religious indoctrination as early as possible, as often as possible, that once you get beyond their claim that, no, this is foundational to our country and our laws and everything that we do, and you ask them to justify that just a little bit, it's always a theological argument. Just like she couldn't help but continue to reiterate over and over again through her comments, even the small section that AJ read, in comparison to how much they spoke. So go ahead.
Mr. Slack, what is a manservant? And what is adultery?
Right.
Can you imagine kids asking that?
Yeah. It does say the word ass is in the King James, so that, kids are going to giggle at that. They're going to say, oh, that says ass. It's going to distract. And that's why even, Representative Talarico himself has said, with his experience as an educator, this is far more likely not only to not help in education in the classroom, but not help Christianity either. But we want to hear.
AJ, you just brought up a good point. I just started thinking about, do you think it's possible for a kid to get to second grade when he's really starting to read and not realize what the concept of murder is? And then all of a sudden, I can't do murder? What is that?
Why is that there?
There wasn't a moment. Yeah, there wasn't a moment when I was in like elementary school where I was like, I should murder someone in this classroom, and needed a redirection on that.
I just say there's concept adultery. Why would a second grader even know what the fuck adultery is? Isn't that like teaching kids sex in second grade? What the hell? Isn't that stuff that they're against?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no consistency on the matter. There's no. It's just this new form of nationalism that's like, if it's not Christian, it's not right, and therefore it doesn't belong. Did you have something to add, AJ?
No, I'm just going to say to everybody listening, you belong.
Yeah, absolutely. And you belong here. We want you here. So get in the comments to share your support for each other, not just for us. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and click below for more nonprofits.